Yesterday, I traveled to Champaign, Illinois, and was invited to speak at a Catholic high school there to their faculty in the morning, and then they had kind of a delayed start professional development day, and I was there to speak with them, and then I got to kind of rotate around to the other, visit with them, like, by the history department and then the math department, and just kind of had conversations about something that I am passionate about, which is kind of Catholic identity within Catholic schools. And the reason that passion came about was my first 2 years when I was a priest. Of course, I was at Cardinal Ritter High School in Indianapolis, and I taught the first 2 years. I was a teacher. I felt like that was a really important thing because for me, my journey to really kind of taking Catholicism seriously was like learning theology and philosophy and kind of encountering the church fathers and the saints and all that kind of stuff. So for my first 2 years, I was like excited, and it was great to teach, and so I put a lot of time into my classes and everything, and it had a great impact on, I feel like, the students that I got to have. But my final year at the high school, I stepped away from teaching and began to make my emphasis in that final year the working with all the other departments in the school to help them bring the Catholic faith into their classes as well. Because what I was seeing was that what I was teaching in theology, a lot of times they would say, we heard the opposite or something different in history class. We heard something opposite or different in science class, right? And again, I don't mean like the teachers that I was with were like intentionally saying, hey, Father Hollowell's wrong, in their classes. They were just teaching kind of, the state standards of history, or the state standards of science or whatever the subject was. And again, I don't mean like it was an intentional thing, but I just realized that like as a Catholic school, and I think a lot of Catholic schools, this conversation's been happening over the past couple of years, is what do we do? We're not going to last, first of all. I mean, that's not the first reason. The most important reason is that we need to bring Jesus Christ and help people be convinced of that, our students in Catholic schools, right? In all areas of life, right? That's the first and primary motivation, I think, for this making this an emphasis, right? And they need to be hearing it in all these different directions. And I realized, like, again, that they were hearing it from me, but even further than that, probably another element to it, I was sharing this with the teachers yesterday, is that I'm seen as like a company man, It's like, oh, I'm sure in the back of the student's mind, if they're skeptical or critical, they're probably like, oh, he's getting paid to say this. He probably gets a bonus, from Archbishop if he says these things or whatever it might be. But when it's coming from all different areas and it begins to infuse every element of a school, right? If they're learning authentic history, and I told the teachers yesterday and my teachers when I was at Ritter, I'm not asking you to whitewash anything, to sugarcoat anything, to be like, oh, Catholicism every Catholic has always been amazing. But to bring that allow Christ and the church to infuse itself into all these areas of the school, that transforms things. And that's what we needed. And I think we're realizing that we need to do that, and we need to get back to that in our Catholic schools. So the reason I mention that is because I would like to look at the psalm for just a second today, the psalm that we have. One of the verses that we sang was, I set the Lord ever before me. I set the Lord ever before me. What I mean by that, and what I'd like to reflect on a little bit, is in a Catholic high school today, it's very easy, and it's even kind of naturally set up this way because of all the other the segmented ways in which students learn. To set theology is over here, and then I go over to this class, and it's none of that. Or maybe I pray at the beginning and I have a great teacher, and we pray at the beginning and end of math class, but then that's it. It's math. And then we come over here and I pray at the beginning and the end, but then it's science. And then I pray over here and then it's English, but I don't, it's easy to bracket God. in our Catholic schools. And I recognized that, and I started to see, like, that's a problem. And the reason I'm sharing all this is not to help you go out and change Catholic high schools, but I think that we do the same thing. I know I do. It's easy to do. It's easy to say in my own life, you know what? Over here I'm going to bracket God, and I do God things sometimes. I'm at church right now. You're in religion class right now. Right? And I'm doing God things. But then do I bring God into everything that I do? Do I set the Lord ever before me? Is God always there in my mind, in my soul? Am I always kind of thinking about and imagining and viewing it as I'm walking with God right now, everywhere? Do I bring God? Do I allow the church? Do I allow Christ to enter in and be with and somehow influence me in my entertainment? Or is that this silo? Well, I'm going to go to church tomorrow and do God things. Then over here, I'm in an entertainment silo. God has nothing to do with this. The church has nothing to do with this, right? That's the temptation. What you watch on TV. Is God a part of what you eat? How you eat? Right? Does that influence? Do we fast sometimes? Do we give things up? Are we into the sin of gluttony? A deadly sin. Is God part of what I watch? Is God part of what I eat? How I eat? Is God part of my entertainment? What I do with my downtime? Right? And I don't mean this in the sense of you need to be thinking of God in every aspect of your life as watching over you and mad at you and ready to pounce, right? Well, I want to really eat the Snickers, but it's my 12th, so I shouldn't because God's watching. No, not at all. A realization that God is with me in a good way. And so I'm going to change things, and I'm going to allow that to impact everything of my life, every minute of my life. Not in an obsessive way, not in a controlling way, not in a way in which God is over me, punishing me already. No. But then that sense that God is with me, God is always before me. And thus there's nowhere where I can go and hide. There's no silo of my life that's not impacted by that. Is God part of my marriage? Right? Is the church's teachings about marriage a part of your marriage? Is God part of how you speak? Do we think about God when we're listening to the radio? Do we think about God when we're talking to other people? Do we think about God when we think about our use of technology, our conversations, our friendships, what we do at work, where we work, how we work? I think that's the challenge that God is setting before us and inviting us to enter into, to set the Lord ever before us. Right? I think, again, we have to fight that temptation of our modern world to put God in a silo that we only enter into some of the time. We pray that we might not bracket God in any way, that we might not bracket him and set him off to the side and just be somebody that we engage with part of the time. We pray for the strength to do what the psalmist says today, to set the Lord ever before us.